Now I need you to change that just a little bit and kind of give them the next word and the whole thing. So I'm going to, I'm adjusting my message just a little bit today as kind of a continuum of last week. For those who weren't here last week, the whole piece was talking about thankfulness and gratitude leads, if we practice thankfulness and gratitude, live out of that, it leads us to contentment. And then contentment, if leads us to the next step of what we really desire and oftentimes want, especially in the busyness of holiday season, and that is the sense of peace, all right? Now, mistakenly, I thought that's where it ended. And it's not one of these linear things. It just goes. It's a cyclical thing, all right? And I want you to see that image. It's a cyclical thing. That it's what I had a guy who was an engineer for John Deere, and we developed a bunch of new things for developing new ways of looking at structures within the church. And he would come up with these things. I used to love it. And then he'd go, "You know what that is, Pastor?" I said, "What's that?" He goes, "It's called a reinforcing loop." I said, "Oh, that must be a technical term. You know, reinforcing loop." The idea is you start and it comes back around. So the idea is you follow thanksgiving and then to gratitude, and from gratitude you go to contentment. Contentment then leads you to peace. But then it doesn't lead you to thankfulness yet. There's one more thing in there, and that next thing after peace is, you ready for this? Joy. And then joy leads us to thankfulness, gratitude, which leads to contentment, which leads to the sense of peace in our life, then leads to more joy, and it keeps going. Do you understand? It's like a holy momentum. For those of you who know anything about momentum on wheels, that's what it's all about. So the Lord says to me, you need to introduce that. In fact, He said, what would you need to preach about all through Christmas time is preach on joy. And I go, everybody knows that. And goes, I'm going to give you some new stuff, fresh material. What I want you to do is talk about that. Because like with the Ten Commandments, 10 Commandments weren't given to us in order to be laws and rules to say, do this or else. It said to us, I created you, I know where you have a tendency to go, and I know where the future's going. And what I need you to do is a little proactivity before you mess up by practicing certain commandments that will keep you from falling into those traps. You all with me? And we've talked about that, this whole sense of what's about keeping the Sabbath day holy, about putting other things together and keeping God lifted up as part of that whole thing. Taking the name of the Lord thy God in vain, which is what? About honoring God's name. That's what it's about. Honoring God is a special name, special word, all this kind of stuff. So my question then was, the Lord developed, how's it going for you? For the last couple of weeks, I've gotten this little thing called umcgratitude@gmail.com, Now, some of you must have lost that because I didn't hear from you, right? I want to be upfront and honest. First, I thought my computer was broke. I thought I should take it in and have it repaired for $500, but I didn't because I figured that maybe there's a little mistake. So I printed it again at the bottom of your insert. So there'll be a reason for that. I'll come back to it, but I want you to kind of keep that in your mind, in your head, as part of that process itself. And I know that you're busy, all right? Now, I understand you're busy, and I understand how that works and how you use that word, but in reality, the reason that sometimes we don't offer up thanks, and I'm sure the reason why you didn't send that to me to tell me about whatever you're thankful for, because, even though we need that to kind of feed our spirits, I know that in reality, you just didn't see a need for it. Is that a good out? You just didn't see a need for it yet. It just didn't happen that way. So this week I decided I'd go over to see Harold Long. You may not know him. Harold's over at the other church. And Harold went to the hospital last Sunday. Now that put a little shockwave through the church over there because Harold's been around forever and the whole thing. So I go to see Harold. I walk in the room, the whole thing. I'm expecting, I have no idea what to expect. So I go in the hospital, I get in there, and all of a sudden, Harold's sitting in the chair. First of all, I thought he was dead. He was asleep. And he woke up and he goes, "Pastor." I said, "Harold, what's this?" He goes, "We were talking about the whole thing. How'd you get in here?" He told me about what's going on, what's happening. Finally, I said, "Harold, what are you thankful for?" Because, you're not dead, you're alive. What are you thankful for, Harold? He goes, "First of all, Pastor, let me get started." You know how Harold does it. "I'm thankful," he says, "for my daughter, who when I called her and told her it wasn't doing good last week, called them and took me into the hospital, and I'm thankful that I'm here and then working with the doctors and nurses. I'm also thankful for," and away we went. It was an unending list of thankfulness. I thought, Harold, you weren't even there on the Sunday that I preached about this thankfulness thing. What is going on with you? And I figured, Harold, you must have been around a while. You kind of know where this is all going. You understand there's something about this thankfulness that's part of our life and part of our world itself. So, how are you doing, as I started out with, meant how's it going for you as part of the process itself. And yet in reality, most of us would say, well, the reason I'll get around to that and the reason I will is because I'm just busy. We say that, don't we? And that usually people, and you know what we get? Exactly what we want. People looking at us and go, I know, I'm busy too. I totally understand it. No, that doesn't work. Because in the midst of our busyness, God says you may be too busy because somehow you got to work God into that process. Sometimes you and I say, you know what? I don't see a need for all this thankfulness. When I get to the point that I have cancer or I have to have surgery or my life falls apart, then I'll have a need for thankfulness, and I'll then do it once God does something for me. But when God's not doing anything for me, what am I supposed to thank God for? Besides, I'm busy. Too busy. You hear what I'm saying to you? And I'm preaching to myself too. God preached it to me this morning at 4:30, so I'm just preaching to you so that you've got it down too. The idea is that somehow we've got in our minds that somehow we wait until things are really bad, and then what do? Wait for us to solve it, and then what do we get from it? We get what? Thanks. I don't know who gave you that model. It was not me, and it was not God. The model is not wait until you got a bad deal and then get thanked. That's like slopping into it. That's like the Ten Commandment thing. That's like, it's like walking into this whole thing and saying, you know what? I don't have a need, therefore I don't need to go. It's kind of like, I don't need to buy more toilet paper. I don't have a need yet. But when my wife calls me and says, we need toilet paper at the house, I know I better rush and get it fast because we're in need at that point. Now, rather than stocking up and having some of us live our spiritual lives in that way too. We just wait until all of a sudden we need it, and then we'll go buy it and make it happen. You know what? God says that's not what this is about. That reassuring cycle, that's not what it's about. Don't play those kinds of games. Those games are worldly games. They're not my games, says God. And you got to go tell those people, and tell yourself, Phil, that you got to practice thankfulness and gratitude in your life because it's critically important. Otherwise, you're going to find this peace is just a substitutionary peace. It's a feeling. It'll go away. It won't stay with you. Not as the world gives do I give peace. And that joy that comes to you won't be just feeling good. It will actually be something that comes from inside of you, and you just cannot help it. Now, most of us, we don't have that. We don't have that kind of joy in our life. We don't have that kind of peace in our life. Our peace is kind of, how you doing today? Well, yesterday I was feeling a little peace. Today it's all messed up again. God said, that's not the way I created you. I did not create you in that way. I did not create and give you that cycle to make that happen. You got to tell them on Thanksgiving, they got to do something about this. They got to make this happen in a way that's perhaps different. I am a health food aficionado. My son runs Whole Foods in Des Moines, and I'll tell you what, I love it. That boy gets something new in, I say, I'll take that. I'll add that to my diet regimen, I go to the doctor, there's a big long list of stuff that I take. He always says, bring me your list. Let me see what you're doing. And I do, and I say, you know what, I feel better, I feel healthy, I feel everything's good. I feel good about this whole thing and put it together in good and in great ways, and I think that's a good thing. However, my kids look at my stack of all that stuff and they go, you are a nut. You are a health nut. Look at all that stuff you've got. You don't need that. And I said, you know why I take this? Because then rather than waiting till I get sick and then go to the doctor, I'm proactive about it. Do you understand what I mean by that? It's like when you go to the doctor and the doctor says, okay, here's what you need to do. Lose weight, get some exercise, you've been there, and drink lots of water. And you go, oh, okay, just make me feel better. And you go home and you go good until the next month. You start getting sick again. You go back in and the doctor says, so, have you been exercising? Have you been losing weight? Have you been drinking lots of water? And you go, well, no, because I don't need it when I feel good. I don't need that stuff. I'll wait till I get sick again, and then I'll do it for 2 hours, 2 days, 1 day. Then I'll go back to my same old routine. Do you understand what I'm telling you? And I want you to see that because I do this. The Lord says, don't do that anymore. He said, you got to help these people because you know what? You got to help yourself because you can't get into a cycle where you only ask and get thankful and gratitude when you feel that you need it. All right? It's got to come out of your daily living. It's got to come out of your life. It's who you are. It's your DNA. It's how God created us and said, if you don't live that, you will never find the reality of true peace. You will never find true joy in your life, which the pastor is going to preach about all through Advent. You got to find those things in your life because it's a prescription for us to move forward in our life and in our living. Yesterday, I was invited to, our church over in Farrar was invited to provide a meal for the wrestlers in Bondurant, Farrar. And they asked me to go and to do a little thing. So the church collected all these towels to give it to the kids because they have lousy towels. Were dirty towels. They've had them for years. And so we gave them brand new towels for the entire team. Everybody donated and we gave them the towels. Then we went over and we made a lunch for them. For all the kids, teachers, family, whoever they want to come, do that whole thing. And then I got to talk. Oh, yay. I got to talk and stand up and do the whole thing, etc. And I loved it because I told him my father was big into wrestling and all this kind of stuff. And he put all this stuff on the wall and everything else. And so, I mean, that was part of my life. And then one day I said, I watched this PBS special about Tom Brands and his brother Terry, you know, the wrestling coaches over University of Iowa. They're a little wacky. And so I was at breakfast over the University of Iowa with my granddaughter, and I was waiting, and all of a sudden I looked across the thing, and there, sitting outside waiting to get in, was Terry Brands. Not Terry, it's Tom. And I thought, whatever. So I go over and I talk to him. I said, I'm going to Haiti, you know, and I saw this video about you. I'm going to talk about you and what you do and everything else and everything. He said, you did? He said, yeah. So he goes in, he sits down with us and has breakfast with us. And then, good boy, he pays for my breakfast and for my granddaughter. And man, I'm telling you, I figure he's my man, you know. Then it turns out I get to be the pastor in Iowa City. And so I looked him up and we had breakfast together again. We kept doing that kind of thing. It was great. We had a wonderful time. And I remember one day he had somebody else come to the breakfast and I'm like, who's this? He said, Dan, my friend Dan. I said, Dan, good to meet you. Dan Gable? What? Dan Gable? He lives in Iowa City. I didn't even know that. I didn't know he was still alive. That's what I said to him. I didn't know you were still alive. He goes, I'm still alive. I'm still moving. I thought, don't take me down. I hate to do this. My shoulders hurts. I can't have you take me down. I mean, that's the way he was, you know. I mean, he was an interesting character as part of that whole process. And I'm telling you, he was a wonderful guy. But I'm telling you, the whole thing, it talks about this. So I got this speech going about what we need to do for the team and how we need to go. We need to stay in the game, team. We need to go be the church. Thank you. Back table. We need to forward with peace. We need to plant some stuff out there in peace and in the lives of our family and everything else. So what am I telling you to do, friends? Here's what it is. Thanksgiving's coming up. That's our field. That's our game. I want you to get your head in the game. I want you to let the God of thanksgiving and living shine through you. And I want you to enthuse you in filling of God's Spirit. I want you to go out and plant seeds of thanksgiving and gratitude, contentment, and peace in everyone around the table so that they recognize it and that you recognize it and that you recognize that God's the source of your thanksgiving. In Luke, the 17th chapter, you read this passage today. It's the 10 lepers. They go out and they get healed. Now, leprosy is not something you get healed out of. They come to Jesus. Jesus heals them. And then you know what they did? They started taking off and running, thankfully. He says, go sell yourself to the temple and all this kind of stuff. So he goes to himself, go to the temple. You all with me? And as he runs to the temple and everything else, all of a sudden one of them goes, wait a minute. I've been healed. I have been healed. I'm going to go back and say something to Jesus. So he runs back to Jesus and said, Jesus, I just want to tell you thank you so much. I can't believe it. You healed me. And you know what Jesus says? You hold on to that. He said, where are the other 9? Where'd they go? Now, some of us think it's a little wisey answer from Jesus, but it's a really in-depth one. He wanted the disciples to see this. Where's the other 9? Jesus, he just came back to tell you he was thankful. Acknowledge it. No, I want to know where the other 9 went. Where'd they go? That's my question. See, that's the mentality that happens when you and I only go to Jesus when we have a need in our life and we come back. Sometimes we don't even come back because we don't have no need for it. We went through the regiment. We don't have to have that kind of thing. And yet, in reality, that's what it's all about. This thanks to God thing, you know, and we have, what I think is we need to move our need into seeds and plant them. Now, there's a little thing for you. Need to seeds and plant them so that others will begin to see and understand what it's all about. That's the strategy. We have to practice with this thing called thankfulness and get it down in order for us to go be the church. Did I wake you up? In order for us to go be the church, thank you, that we get this gratitude and thankfulness thing together so that we can move to a sense of contentment in our life, then we can move to peace, and then we can move ourselves on to joy. That's what it's all about. But some of us are just waiting. We're just waiting for that one time a year to practice thankfulness, and that's almost sacrilege. And then what do? We eat. And if we really want to disturb our families, what we say to them is, okay, I always do this in my family. I always say, okay, Grandpa, it's time to eat. Okay, it's time to eat. Okay, Grandpa's going to do the prayer. Okay, but before I do the prayer, I want you all to tell me something you're thankful for, or you don't eat. I don't do the last part. I just do the first part. And then I look around at my family, and they're all sitting there doing this. Come on! What are you thankful for? Brain dead. I don't know. Whatever. Okay, we'll sacrifice you. You do it. Okay. And then my son will stand up and go, I'm thankful for you, Dad. Thank you. What else? Anybody else that got something they're thankful for? We don't eat till we do it. And then finally my daughter will say, I'm thankful for the food which I hope we are about to eat. Got it. All right. Have a prayer. Go in and feast yourself and make it happen. In reality, that's what it turns out to be in 1,000 different things. Scripture talks about a thanksgiving sacrifice. Did you hear those words? Thanksgiving what? Sacrifice. Now, that's a critical thing. It starts in Leviticus in the Old Testament. It was the rule to us as Christians, the rule to us as people of God. We are required to come to the temple and to bring a sacrifice of thanksgiving. It can be animal meat, it can be vegetables, it can be fruit, those kind of things. You brought it to the temple and you gave it. And what they did was they would take it and they would burn it. And then once they burned it or cooked it, then all of a sudden, you, as a member of the group, could come and take some of that meat and take it back home. You with me? And then you feed your family bits and pieces of that meat as a way of continuing this cycle of Thanksgiving. And if you had any left over, you had to burn it. You couldn't keep it. You had to burn it. So have your fill and everything else. Okay? That was called a sacrifice of thanksgiving. It was a requirement for all of God's people. The idea was, take what you're thankful for, take it back, and don't you just eat it, but feed it to the rest of your family so that they also are filled with thankfulness. And that fulfills the thankfulness sacrifice that God calls us to do. Okay, so this week, I decided to practice this. So on Monday, I said this is what's called product testing. Before I give this to you, I want you to hear what I went through this week. I had to take my time on Monday to write a note to each one of my kids that are coming to the meal and tell them how much I thank for them and say something specific about the thankfulness. Never heard anything. Second day, did another one, rang it out, came up with another one. It's getting a little hard to come up with what I'm thankful, but it got me into the right mood. Then I started kind of getting into that whole thing. Still never heard anything. Third day, I write them again. Text, never heard from any of them. Of course, that's nothing unusual for some of them, but anyway. All of a sudden, on the fourth day, on Thursday, over a meal, I got 2 texts from my family. And the text said, "What's up?" I thought, oh God, I'm so sorry. They think I want something. Well, I do, but I don't. And one of my kids wrote me back and said, I'm thankful for you, Dad, and I'm thankful for these things that you've done for me and what you've done in my life. And I thought, well, I guess I'll stop there. No, I decided to write them again. So Friday, I wrote them again. And all of a sudden, they must have got the message because I started getting these texts back from them saying, and we're thankful for you. And they gave me specifics, not just generalities, but specifics. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. This is really working out to be a good thing and everything else. All of a sudden, they started doing that. They started sharing with me the very things that I was trying to share with them. It was pure joy for me to see that come back to me. I thought to myself, I don't even have to ask on Thanksgiving, what are you thankful for before we eat this meal? They already are thanking. You're getting into the mode. You understand what I mean? It took a little time, but they're getting into that mode. They're making it happen. I said, God, is this what you're trying to show me? This is something maybe we need to practice? God said, "One, so I'm telling you." He said, you tell those people and yourself, don't you stop. Come Monday, or you could even start today if you want to be a little early, head of the class, that you send to your families, to your friends, everything. You send them a text. You call them on the phone. You just say to them, I just want to tell you how much I love you. I don't want anything, but I want to tell you that. I want to tell you specifically why. We need specifics in the world. And then send it to them. And it may take you 3 to 4 days before you hear anything back. But God said, you know what? You plant that as a seed. You throw that out there, and it will not come back to you void. And you watch. Because what you're trying to do is that sacrificial Thanksgiving sacrifice. You're planting it, you're taking it back home, you're giving it to them so they get to feast and eat too. What is it? It's that reinforcing loop. It's that cycle that says to us, if you really want to understand what the pastor's going to preach about in joy, you've got to understand what peace is all about. You've got to understand what gratitude and thanksgiving is and how will you best experience it, to practice it, to share it, to plant it in the life of your kids. Do you know, send it to your kids, to your grandkids. You know what they're going through in their schools? Do you know what they're going through in their life? Old people who are struggling to figure out, am I going to be healthy tomorrow? There are people out there who need that. And God says, you do that, it will not come back void to you. I promise you. And it will also impact you in your life to get you into a state of gratitude and thankfulness. So when your family comes on Thanksgiving to your house, instead of you flitting around going, oh, I can't get all this done, you go, whatever. I love you. I love that note you sent me. Oh, my God. That gave me energy all week. Are you kidding me? And I thank you for it. And even if only one person says it or gives me just a look, it's worth it. Because I put into practice this thing of thanksgiving, thanks living. And God said, you know what? This is a spiritual test for you, friends. This is a spiritual test for you as a church. You go out and you say, go be the church. This is what the church is. And it may not just be your family. It may be your next door neighbor. Maybe your spouse. Maybe somebody who just needs to be refreshed with a word. To say, this is what I'm thankful for about you. You may start out as a game, but you know what? It will be a lifesaver for you by the time you end. So when I get ready to talk about joy, all of a sudden you'll go, oh my goodness, I can't wait for this. Because I understand what peace is really all about. I'm beginning to see it. Now, I'm only telling you this because I practiced it for you. All right? And it works. I'm only telling you. I got some hard nuts to crack in my family. And it worked. I'm just telling you. And I'm giving you this early so that you can get it going, because in the third day when Jesus rises, or in your case, the fourth day, the fifth day when Thanksgiving comes, you get to be there at the resurrection to see your family get into the mode of saying things in a thankful way. I'm serious. This is a spiritual test. I don't want you to miss out on this. I don't want you to go through thinking, I'm going to prepare a meal and that's all I'm going to do. You start preparing that meal now. And you start preparing it by offering up these little, simple little words to people who, I swear, God is my witness, who are so hungry to hear it. They're the people who feed at the trough of the television set. How the world's on fire, everything's falling apart. You see that stuff? Are you kidding me? That's my Thanksgiving meal? No, that's what we eat all the time. We eat it. God didn't even enter into that picture. This is an opportunity for us to enter into that relationship with God so that God becomes part of our thankfulness and part of our test. I know it's going to take some time. Probably take you at least 10, 15 minutes. And I know that you're busy. And I know you may not need it. But I want you to understand the richness and the joy of a relationship with God and of a thanksgiving that you will never forget. And your family will never forget as you proof them with words of thanks. Okay, you got it, team? I want you to go out from here. I want you to do something. I want you to make a difference. I don't want you to be in the same old, same old. I want you to go out and I want you to do it. Thanksgiving's coming. You understand that? I want you to enter into thanks living with God. Y'all understand? Go be the church. Go be the church. Go be the church. Go be the church. Get out on that field. Make it happen. Let's pray. God, I give you thanks today. Whew. We just need to know that it's all about generosity. If we don't have anybody to write to,